Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. For today's video, I have I think about 4 different Kronos comps for you, and I'm gonna be doing it in Kronos 16 just to give you guys an idea of how powerful these teams are and why they work. So the idea of this video is not a Kronos 16 video. The reason why I can do Kronos 16 with these teams is because my relics are pretty good. I mean, there are some comps where you do not need to have such great relics in order for it to work. But for some of the more free-to-play comps, you definitely need really good relics in order for you to use it in Kronos 16. But so, the whole point of this video is not a Kronos 16 video like I said. It is a Kronos guide so that you can use many of these different teams depending on the state of the game, depending on the stage of the game that you're at right now. And these teams should be able to help you perform in Kronos very well. They do carry out their function very perfectly, and the Esper choices over here are not without reason. So without further ado, let's take a look at the first team. This is the current best team comp out there. Okay, it's not actually the best. The best team comp actually involves an R6 Intisa right now so that you can double her as your attack buffer. But that is for the ultimate pay-to-win player right now. It's not for most players. I don't think anyone would, with a sane mind, actually go for an R6 Intisa right now. It's probably not going to be the case. But the setup looks something like this, right? So we have Xiao In here. Here are his stats. We have the Black Twin. Here are his stats. We have Gaius. Gaius is going to be really key, not so much for the boss wave, but more for the first 2 waves, because he's able to blow through just the first 2 waves very easily, right? So I think we should go ahead and arrange them in their speed orders so that it's a little bit easier for you to understand what's happening here. But actually, you know what? We can move our Ashley up in front, because she is, after all, the fastest Esper here. Okay, so maybe something like this. This is going to be the turn order. Ashley is always going to take the first turn, followed by the Black Twin, and then Gaius is going to nuke. So the first 2 waves just pop like that. 1, 2, 3, done. But for the boss wave, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Ashley is going to buff at the start just with the attack buff. So it's also very important that you have her at full skill ups, right? Full skill ups is very important. The 4 turns cooldown is very important. And then here comes the defense break coming from the Black Twin. And then Gaius is going to land some extra damage. It's not going to be a lot. It's not going to be able to compare as much as Xiao In and in fact Ollie. Ollie is my biggest DPS Esper over here. The biggest. Now in terms of resonances, it is not essential that Gaius is R2, but because my Gaius is R2, and that is why my Xiao In can actually run with 35% crit rate. The same goes for Ollie as well. So Ollie has more than 35, he has 40%, but 35 is the bare minimum crit rate that we need. And the reason for that is because number 1, we have an R6 Black Twin here who is able to provide a crit rate buff to us. For 2 turns, this increases our crit by 30%. So that is 30% out of the way. And due to type advantage, right, as you can see, if you are type advantageous, you will have a 15% additional crit as well. That goes up to 45%. But because of Gaius' R2 effect, what happens is when he is in his God King mode, he's actually going to grant the rest of your teammates 20% crit rate. So that goes up to 65% crit rate, which means your allies only need 35% crit rate so long as they are flow type Espers. And this is why the turn order here is exceptionally important, right? My 2 slowest Esper, Xiao In and Ollie, can be built with very low crit rate, and this is how we maximize their damage output. So for example, you take a look at my Ollie, I just went full on crit damage on his kit. Very little into attack. This is considered very little as compared to his crit damage output. So let's take a look at how this run works. So like I said, Ashley is going to go first. Okay, a little bit of a lag here. Followed by the Black Twin. This is just... it's more for the boss wave, right? It's more important for the boss wave. Not so important for this wave, because Gaius is still going to nuke right after Ashley attacks. So she's going to lower the HP of all the enemies again. More HP reduction from the Red Twin, Black Twin, however way you want to call him. And then Gaius nukes afterwards. Right? Something like that. And that's the first 2 waves done. Just like that. Boom. And now moving on to the boss wave. Crap animation. So Ashley buffs our attack, right? Because our cooldowns are up. And now we get a defense break from the Netherworld Hull. And here comes... okay, Gaius not just yet. Okay, so here comes Gaius transforming, dealing about 140k. Xiao In does 178k. Ollie does 218,000, and this is just with a defense break without Seer. If we had Seer, our damage output is going to go up by a lot. But one thing you should have taken notice that I forgot to mention is, if you rewind the clip a little bit, and you take a look at, for some reason Kronos loves to target Ollie, right? And that's the reason why Ollie was actually immune at the start. I gave Ollie the light set, and the reason for that is just to make sure that he don't get stunned, because not only is he my biggest DPS, he's also the greatest support on my lineup. So he needs to be not stunned, not controlled, so that he's able to protect my ally from death and also counterattack to deal a lot of damage to the boss if that actually happens. So yeah, this is the team. This is probably like the fastest setup that there exists in the game right now, unless you have an R6 Intisar, which I think is one step above this team. And if you do have an R6 Intisar, you can replace Ashley with that Intisar for the team-wide attack buff. That is going to work the same, but in fact, it's going to work a lot better as well. Now, this next setup is slightly slower. Okay, I wouldn't say it's slightly slower. It's about half the speed of the previous run. It is less... it's not really less pay to win. It's just... it's a little bit different. So instead of having Ollie as your support, instead of having Ashley as your attack buffer, we now have Clara as the main support and the immunity bringer, and we have Abigail as the attack buffer, and that's about it. That's generally their role. You can replace Abigail with maybe Suhua, for example. I think that is still going to work perfectly fine. But I think for this showcase, it seems like Abigail is going to work a little bit better. And the reason why I have the Black Twin as the lead instead of Xiao-In, for example, is because I need Abigail to push Black Twin. I don't want Abigail to push Xiao-In at the start. If she pushes Xiao-In at the start, that's going to ruin our turn order a little bit, and that's going to make Xiao-In use his third skill at the boss wave without any defense break. So because of that, we need to run the Black Twin, but with the Black Twin over here, we can actually reduce our crit rates a little bit more by another 20%. So we don't need 20% crit rate because of the crit rate leader buff. We do need 15% more crit rate because of type advantage. We do not need that extra 30% crit rate because of the Black Twin's crit rate buff. And of course, if we have Gaius, we don't need a total of 85% crit rate, which is insane. We basically just need base crit, and most of the time we're going to land a crit. So this is insane amount of crit. It's going to run very slow, unfortunately, but let's take a look at all their stats again, right? So this is the stats of the Black Twin. These are the stats of Xiao-In. Xiao-In is going to be really, really crucial here, by the way. These are the stats of Gaius, and like I said, because Gaius is at R2, we now no longer need a 20% crit rate whenever he transforms, right? So that's that. Here are the stats of Clara, and finally, here are the stats of Abigail. I must let you know that even though my relics are maybe above the average, but the whole point of this video is not to cover Kronos 16. The whole point of this video is to give you teams that you can use to cover anything below 16 as well. So it's gonna work out. It really depends on how good your stats are, which will then translate into the current Kronos that you can fight. So without further ado, let's take a look at this run. So it's gonna kind of perform the same, but it's gonna be a lot slower because what you notice is that Gaius actually takes like the 4th turn here. So we had Abigail taking a turn, then we had the Black Twin, and then we had Clara, right? And Clara's role here is gonna be very important because she has the immunity buff. And then finally 4th Esper is gonna be Gaius. So there's a lot of turns taken just in the first wave itself. And the same goes for the second wave, right? So 4 Espers move in order to... Okay, we might not actually sweep this. Yeah, we might not sweep, but there you go. That still works because now we still have our cooldowns kept for this stage, which is all that we care about. Clara's gonna move. Nice. That's it. Yeah, so even if we don't kill the mid boss, it's still fine because our Abigail and Clara, they're gonna clear the field afterwards. So this team, just understand that this team is very safe. See all the immunities here, right? Very safe, but very slow. Yeah, and because we have poor speed tuning here, our Xiao-In actually just 3rd skill without a defense break on the boss. We might be able to mitigate it if we actually made the Black Twin slower, I think. No, actually no, that is not gonna work because Abigail is gonna push the Black Twin. I'm still thinking about how we can avoid that so that he actually does good damage. Xiao-In actually does good damage. See, the immunity buff coming from Clara is super important. So Clara definitely needs to have, not Ocean set, but Clara definitely needs to be fully skilled up. That 4 turns cooldown is very, very important. At least in terms of the immunity uptime. So believe it or not, before I actually had Ollie, this was my team. This was the team that I was running. It's definitely very slow, but it is quite safe. It is not... Okay, all Kronos teams, they are not 100%. I don't think you find any Kronos teams out there that are 100%. I mean, there might be, but it's gonna take like a very, very long time, like 3 minutes, for example. Which we will take a look at a team that kind of revolves around the same concept. But yeah, there you go. How long was this run? This run took us a total of 2.5 minutes. Oh my goodness. This tends to go down to like 2 minutes. So 2.5 is actually really slow. I think it really depends on RNG. Now, this next team that we're taking a look at is definitely more free to play than the previous team that we're looking at, and definitely much more free to play than the first Ollie team. This team is still relatively cheap to build, although because we are using an Odette here, that means that we need to at least beat all the different ritual miracles up to the 14th difficulty. There is a strong requirement of having you beat Kronos 14, APEP 14, and Fafnir 14 as well, so that you can do Dislyte Lens in order to fuse like your first copy of Odette in the first place. So this team is, while pretty easy, pretty free to play in most cases, it does have a very stringent requirement on having a good team in each of the different ritual miracles. Now this team comp was first introduced by, I think, Esper King, I'm not sure. So another content creator out there, he introduced the idea of using Odette. I did change his lineup a little bit. I'm not using Jiangman because I don't feel like Jiangman carries a lot for this setup. In fact, I think Leon is probably a little bit better, although my speed tuning is kind of weird. He is not dealing all the damage that he needs to do. But he also used Hengrye in this case. But for the next lineup that I'm going to showcase, I am not going to be using Hengrye. Instead, I'm going to be using something a little bit more free to play, which I think is actually possibly even better as well. But let's take a look at how this lineup works. But before that, we are going to start off with the relics, of course. So we have the Black Twin here. I've showcased that so many times. We have Leon. Now the reason why I'm using Leon is just because he has a lot of single target burst, which is really good against Kronos, because the idea behind Kronos is you don't want him to keep taking too many turns, you just want to kill him as soon as possible. But the thing is, I feel like Leon has definitely fallen short in terms of DPS, and I know my stats are not the best because I have very little crit damage. I have a lot of attack power though, so that kind of like balance up a little bit. And then next we have Xiaoyin, which is still on my low crit rate set. But I feel like with the crit rate lead, right? So I am using the Black Twin here for the crit rate lead. My Xiaoyin is still gonna be, I think, pretty okay, or if not, I think he has just enough crit rate anyway. Now the fourth Esper is gonna be Odette, and now the reason why she is used here is because you take a look at her cold armor buff, right? So whenever any of your allies with cold armor gets hit, I think they have a good chance of landing speed down, landing attack down, and yeah, not the freeze, yeah. So speed down and attack down. So these two are gonna be good against Kronos because the attack down obviously helps. And the speed down also kind of helps a little bit, even though the boss has his AP push like crazy anyway. But for the most part, I think the attack down is very important. And why this is the case, right? Very interestingly, I think the most dangerous attack from Kronos himself is probably his third skill. This attacks all enemies once, and then you land a very big hit to the Esper with the lowest HP. So the fact that after landing his first hit actually gives him the attack debuff, his subsequent follow-up attack is actually not going to deal as much damage, and it's something that we're going to see as well. His follow-up attack is not going to be that impactful. So it's quite important that you have her fully skilled up, and I mean Odette, so that she can cycle through her third and her second skill a little bit more efficiently, so that at least someone, right, just someone on your lineup has the cold armor at all times. And then finally we're going to end off with Hengrye. I have her on the Panacea set. You can run her with Windwalker, you can run her with Ocean, whatever, anything goes. So the ideal stat for her is always just going to be speed and a little bit of tankiness. That's it. That's all she needs. Alright, so let's take a look at how this team runs, and it's going to be quite similar to the timing of the previous setup. Or I think this is going to be just a little bit slower. The previous setup is still going to be a little bit faster just because Gaius blows through the first two waves super fast. But for this setup here, it doesn't deal with the first two waves that efficiently. The first wave goes down perfectly fine, right? Like S3, S3, third skill, and it's done. But for the second wave, this is where things become a little bit weird, and it doesn't always work out perfectly for us. I'm not sure why. I think it really depends on who we target first. Yeah, so we're actually throwing away all of our skills. We threw away all of our defense breaks and our third skill from Xiaoyin. This was like the worst setup possible. But we should still be able to come back from this. We need the ice barrier. There we go. See? Attack debuff and the speed down as well. Perfect. I feel like it lands with a 100% chance. Like 100% proc rate. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. But yeah, so that's the goal. Just throwing... Not throwing the run. Just throwing a lot of attacks. Just keep attacking. And this is the setup over here. But yeah, like I said, this is... Even though this is free to play, in a sense, it is not easy to achieve because of Odette requiring a lot of Dislyte grinding. Oh my god, we just got triple resisted. Our Black Twin just got triple resisted. What the shit, man. Yeah, Hengrye is really good, but I feel that Prevention is a lot better than Cure. So I don't think Cleansing is gonna be as impactful as Immunity. for example. So if you have a Clara, you can definitely replace your Henry with a Clara. I seriously hate the tower on the right, the follow on the right. I hate that shit so much. The amount of AP that it pushes on Kronos is ridiculous. Like the AP gain that Kronos has is insane. But that is mostly for like the higher levels of K16. I mean the higher levels of Kronos. So anyway, this team took us 2.5 minutes, right? But this team tends to fall within the range of like 2.5 to 3 minutes. So this is actually one of the faster runs. The previous team was a little bit faster. Now for the final showcase, this is actually a completely free-to-play team. It's very easy for you to get all of these espers, maybe except for Ira, you need to summon for her unless you buy like the $1 pack or something like that, right? I'm not sure whether she's still in the packs actually, but this team is super easy to build. You just need like rare ability mods and just some epic ability mods, and this is gonna be very easy for you to build. Like within the first 3 days of playing, you should be able to build this team entirely. But please take note that this team I do not recommend for Kronos 16 at all. It is very tough in Kronos 16. And the way this team works, and I'm just going to explain how this works, and I'm just going to let the run play for itself. So how this works is, we only have one DPS Esper, and that's going to be the Black Twin or the Red Twin, whatever. And then all the other Espers here are all going to support him. So the way AI works in this game right now is, if everyone has like full HP, they are then going to focus all of their abilities on the leader Esper. So we already know how Ira works, or in case you're a new player, the way she works is she would always prioritize her second skill on the leader Esper, the Esper that's on the top left spot. So in most cases, it's going to be your leader. So what Divine Love does, it actually reduces the cooldown of that ally by 1 turn, and then you grant this Brazen Garment's Watch to that ally as well. So whenever any of your other allies take a turn, that ally with the Brazen Garment's Watch is going to gain 15% AP. So this is always going to go onto the leader, which is going to be our Black Twin here. So he's going to gain a lot of AP movement whenever our allies take a turn, right? And of course, that also gives him a little bit of immunity because Divine Love actually dispels all debuffs from an ally. So that's gonna like remove stuns, remove all that kind of good stuff. And of course, we are actually going to be using Changpu here. And the reason for that is because Changpu's AI is pretty smart right now, especially after Ascension 3. Because she's always going to prioritize using her third skill all the time, which means we are always going to have immunity buff. So she's actually very powerful for Kronos. And next we have Suhua, and her AI is kind of shit right now because the way they have changed her AI is that she would always just spam her second skill whenever she has it, or rather she would prioritize her third skill first and then her second skill. So she would always throw invincibility whenever. Doesn't even matter whether your ally needs a heal or not. So even if your ally does not need a heal, she's still going to use Astral Guardian here to protect that ally. And because of how her AI works right now, she's also going to prioritize the leader, which is the Black Twin. So when the Black Twin is prioritized this way, he's going to be invincible, which is great, right? He's going to have his stuns removed, his defense breaks removed by the Divine Love effect here. He's going to get a lot of healing, even the second skill here, Restoration. It's going to prioritize the leader in most cases, not that it really matters. And then we have Anki-Chai here, whose sole purpose, even though we already have an attack buffer in the form of Suhua, his sole purpose is actually to reduce the cooldowns of the rest of my Espers here. And you will see that he spams this a lot, which is very fun to see, especially since we have the R6 Ira here. I think less than R6 is actually better because less than R6 means that her third skill doesn't actually give Rising Garment's Watch buff. And why this is a problem is because it messes up your turn order like crazy. But with that out of the way, this team is pretty fun to see. Let's take a look at how this works. Right, you see that? So the invincibility went straight to the Black Twin, even though he didn't need a healing at all. So interesting fact, the Black Twin would never use his first skill. It is never going to happen. His cooldowns are always going to be constantly reduced, so most of the time he's probably going to be using his third skill, but he is still going to be using his second skill every once in a while. I lied, he was apparently able to use his first skill. I completely lied, but it doesn't happen that frequently. Now, another important reason why Ira is in this team is because she's quite effective in controlling the AP of the two followers on either side. I know she kind of missed over here, but she has her third skill up very frequently because we have Anki-Chai to reduce the cooldown of all our allies. So you notice that she spams her. There you go, again, right? Her third skill goes out again, and that reduces the AP of the followers, which is very important. So we don't get the stuns from the follower on the left. We don't get the AP pushing from the follower on the right. Most of the time. Sometimes, you know, RNG is RNG. We fail to AP control like 3 times, right? And as such, the followers are actually able to move. So this is what's happening. A lot of things are happening. A lot of turns are taking. A lot of cooldowns are being reduced. And we're just spamming our third skill and our second skill. Second skill is pretty good because it lands the AoE slow, which we already have Ira for that, but just in case, it's a really good way for you to slow down at least Kronos, right? Because Kronos takes many turns and he gets rid of his debuffs very effectively. So just having more slow debuff is a little bit handy. We nearly lost our Ira, holy shit. This team is actually so chef's kiss. It works so well, okay? It works so well even though it's such a meme team. It's like, it's so counterintuitive because we are spamming so many turns. We are taking so many turns and that's actually pushing Kronos a lot. But in the same vein, because we are gaining so many turns, we are actually able to channel a lot of support, a lot of defense buffs, a lot of attack buffs, defense breaks, slow debuffs, AP reductions, a lot of good stuff, right? Cooldown reductions as well. A lot of things in this setup, which is very, very fun to see. And of course, you do not need to use the Black Twin here. You can use other aspects. I do feel like the Black Twin is pretty good because he has a crit rate buff with crit lead, which allows you to build him with very low crit rate, especially so for new players, right? Because this is like mostly going to be a new player comp. But I do feel like because he has the defense break, he is probably one of the best choices for your solo DPS. So he has a lot jam-packed into one kit. So very, very nice. This team, 4.5 minutes is really slow, but it does work pretty effectively. But I must warn you that it's probably not going to be a team that works into Kronos 16 unless your relics are really, really good. But that's about it for this video. I'm sorry that it dragged on for way too long. I just want to give you guys a lot of options for Kronos 16 so that you guys have no excuse whatsoever. Sorry, a lot of options for Kronos so that you guys don't have an excuse saying that you can't do Kronos at all. That is entirely not true. You have many different aspects that you can play around with. These are not hard and fast choices over here. Like for example, in the first team, if you did not have an Ashley, you can always replace Ashley with Alice. You can also replace Ashley with Dahlia as well. That works perfectly fine. But anyway, if you have any other questions, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. I hope this video was helpful, informative, humorous, comedic, I don't know. But if you guys enjoyed today's video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.